Good morning. Today is Friday, April 4th, 2025. Allow me to share just two more very important practical applications of Korbanos, the offerings, the sacrifices that we begin to discuss this Shabbos in the Torah portion of VaYikra, in the book of VaYikra, the third book of the Torah. Even though we do not have the Korbanos today, we do not have the rituals in the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, still there are many, many lessons and practices that we learn from this, and it's important to understand them. So I want to start just today briefly with two. There is a korban, a sacrifice that was brought, very, very interesting. It's called an asham talui. Now the word asham means sin. The word tali means a hanging sin or a pending sin. And a person brings this korban in the following scenario. Let's just say a person ate a food not realizing that it may not be kosher. It's not certain. But, before we eat something and we're not sure if it's kosher, we should find out for sure if it's kosher. But this person ate it. It may not be kosher. Now, meanwhile, the person is going to find out with certainty if in fact the food is kosher or not. But until that happens, a person has a responsibility to bring this korban called an asham talui. They did an action. It's not known yet if it was prohibited, but they bring this asham talui because they did something without making sure that it was okay. Now, it is possible that it will turn out that the food is fine, and it will turn out that they did no sin whatsoever. But from the moment that they ate this, they have the obligation to bring this korban. And what we learn from this is something that is applicable to us right now. We have to make sure that what we are doing is proper. We can't do something, there's this popular saying, do it first and ask forgiveness later. That's not ethical. That's not the Jewish way. No, if you're not sure that it's okay, don't do it until you're sure that it's okay. And so what we learn from this, even though we don't have this korban today, and remember what I said before, bringing a korban, bringing a sacrifice, it could not be induced by somebody else. It means that I myself recognize that I did something, that I have a shortcoming, and I want to bring this korban to fix what was inside of me, that I went ahead and did something without making certain that it was okay. And again, even if it turns out that it was okay, but my action of proceeding without being certain that it was okay, that itself is a fault. And I want to fix that fault. I choose to fix that fault by bringing this korban. And it's a reminder to us, it's a lesson to us, even though we don't have this korban, that our actions require constant review. That we should not just go ahead and do something, and then if it's wrong, try to fix it. No. We should review our actions. We should make sure that they're okay before we do them. Because it matters. Because following what God says is important. And if following what God says is important, we don't want to take the chance that we have done something improper simply because we didn't take the effort to find out if it was okay. That's not the right thing. And so we learn from the asham talui a lesson about how we are to live, about how we are to serve God, and about the way we need to scrutinize our own actions before we do them, and certainly our words before we do them. Lastly, this is a practical application that comes from the laws of Korbanos in this week's Torah portion. There is a practice required by Jewish law that when a person has a meal that includes bread, if a person's going to eat bread, that bread is a special food, and it's necessary that we wash our hands first. We make the bracha al natilas yadayim for washing our hands. And then we say a special bracha of hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We thank God who brings bread from the earth. And when we eat the bread, we dip it into salt. We always have salt when we make hamotzi. There's some people, I think, who mistakenly believe this only applies on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we have salt on the table. We dip the challah into salt. But that's not correct. I mean, that is correct. But it applies anytime. Anytime we eat bread. Now, I just want to point out that if a person is on a low-salt diet, then it is enough to simply have the salt on the table. You don't have to actually eat it, because that would not be healthy. So, just want to point that out. Why do we have salt on the table when we make hamotzi? There's several different reasons, but our sages give the following reason, which has such an important message for us. It's because in this week's Torah portion, the Torah tells us, Al kol karboncha takriv melach. Every single time that you would bring an offering, you had to include a small amount of salt that was also placed on the altar, along with whatever else was placed there. Why was salt added to every korban, every offering that was placed on the altar? I could understand the parts that are taken home. If you want to put salt on, that's fine. You could put pepper, you could put anything that you want on it to make it taste good. But if you're putting it on the altar and it's being burned, why does there need to be salt? Our sages give us an incredible answer. The Medrash teaches us that there is a malach, an angel, that is God's intermediary between God and the sea, the oceans of the world. And when the Mishkan was built, this malach, this angel of the sea, came before God to complain. The angel said, in this Mishkan that you commanded the Jewish people to build, this sanctuary, and later the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, but in the sanctuary, every single aspect of the natural world is represented. There's wood, and there's metal, and there's stones, minerals, and there's cloth, tapestries. Every aspect of the natural world is represented except the sea. How could it be that of all the materials that you, God, commanded to use to build the Mishkan, and we know all the materials, remember, over the last few Torah portions, we listed all the different materials, and everything is represented, the land, and the trees, and the flowers, and the gems under the land. Everything is represented except the sea. How could you leave the sea out? And our sages say, God says to the angel, you're right. You're right. Your complaint is valid. And therefore God commanded in this week's Torah portion, Al kol karboncha takriv melach. There should always be some salt. Salt which comes from the sea water, which leaves behind the salt. On every korban there's salt. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who I've quoted to you so many times before, the greatest authority in Jewish law of the previous generation, and one of the most refined characters of any human being you could imagine. He lived on the Lower East Side of Manhattan with his family, and he would often be walking close to his building, and he would see his children playing in a group with other children. They're playing. The little children, they're playing, his grandchildren. So he would approach his grandchildren, he'd give them a kiss, he'd give them a hug, his grandchildren. But then he would give a kiss and a hug to every other child. Not his grandchildren, the other children who were there. And he would say, why should any child feel excluded? Our table becomes holy when we sprinkle salt on the bread, or at least have salt on the table. When we remember to include everything and not let anyone feel excluded. And of course, the message of this is that our table on which we eat our meals is an altar. And that's why we elevate the food that we eat by making sure that it's kosher. We elevate the experience of eating by doing it to honor Shabbos, to honor Yom Tov, or to give us energy and strength to be able to do mitzvahs for the rest of the day, and to share what we have with others and to make others feel welcome in our home. That's how we make our table into a mizbeach. I've seen somewhere, I never actually saw this in practice, but I've seen written a minhag, a custom, which to my mind seems like an incredible custom. It was a custom, I don't know where it was practiced. As I say, I haven't seen it myself, but there's a custom mentioned that when a person never passes away, so you need an aron, you need a casket. What do you use to build the casket from? Okay, I understand today you go to papermen's and they show you the caskets. Fine. There's a custom that a person who passed away, they would take their dining room table, and from the wood of the dining room table, they would fashion the aron, the coffin, the casket. Because it's holy. Because we sanctify our meals by saying kiddush, by making a bracha, by using it for elevated purposes, and especially by including others, by making sure no one feels left out. That's what makes our table holy. That's what makes our table compared to the altar. And every time we have hamotzi, every time we eat bread and we have salt, we should remember this lesson, never to let anyone feel excluded, to rather welcome and include everyone. The underlying theme of all of the sacrifices is how do we make ourselves better? It starts with self-awareness and a willingness to improve. Because again, it's got to come from me. I've got to want to be better. And the system of Korbanos gave the people at that time and still gives us myriad lessons and opportunities for how to make ourselves better. That is what we should take from this week's Torah portion. My friends, I just want to share with you a story. It's not related to this, but I've seen it now in a couple of sources in the last couple of days. And it's a story that I think is a very, very good and appropriate way to finish the work week and with which to enter Shabbos, a story to inspire us as we enter Shabbos. This is an incredible story. It's a story about a woman named Galit in Israel today. And Galit is the widow of Elkanah Wiesel. Now, her husband Elkanah was killed fighting Hamas in Gaza, and Elkanah was 35 years old. Elkanah and Galit have 4 children. And a couple of days ago, Galit remarried. And her new husband's name is Rachamim Amrani. Rachamim. Of course, you can imagine it was a very emotional wedding. And at the beginning of the chuppah, Galit spoke to everyone who was there. And I want to share with you what she said. She said, Elkanah, her first husband who was killed, Elkanah is alive inside of us, inside each and every one of us. God lives inside of us. In truth, there is no separation from God in this world. Even amidst the pain, the tears, and the hole in our lives, just like in the great happiness, God is good. And then she addressed her first husband, who'd been killed in battle. Elkanah, I am going in the path that you paved for me. I am not swerving to the right or to the left. I'm fulfilling your marching orders precisely. Every single moment I am choosing life. I am choosing to be happy. I'm choosing the strength of life. And she said, Elkanah, please do me a favor. Continue to pray from heaven for all the widows and for all the nation of Israel. Don't forget what we agreed to. Total victory is more important than anything else. Total victory against our external enemies, total victory against our internal enemies, against sadness, against laziness, against giving up hope, against anger. And she said to her first husband who had been killed, Mazel tov, Elkanah. I am imagining you now with your friends in heaven, with my father, with my grandfathers, with all the heroic soldiers. You are waving 1,000 torches there at once, torches of holy fire, fire that will burn up all the impurity that exists in the world, fire that will light up the world with holiness and purity. This is the precise fire that you will light in the Beit HaMikdash with God's help. Since October 7th, we are in a continuous war. We are in the same battle. In the exact same war, I lost one man and merited another man. Elkanah, you always fought your entire life. In your final days, you fought on the battlefield, and then you went upward and left us to fight daily. A real war that sometimes causes good blood to flow. A war of good against bad. And both of us know that the good wins. To the beloved Wiesel family, Elkanah is with you always. We are with you always. We aren't leaving you. But Elkanah asks of you, be happy. Be happy to life. Mazel tov. Thank you to everyone who came. With God's help, this wedding will lead to many more weddings, to great happiness in the nation of Israel, and to the ultimate redemption. May Galit's words come true soon and fully. My friends, I wish you a great day and a beautiful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.